In 1985 in Sydney, Australia, an Israeli nuclear technician named Mordecai Vanunu met with a journalist from the British Sunday Times. It was a friendly chat about how a research scientist could pass on exclusive materials about Israel's nuclear capabilities to the press. Why did Vanunu do this? It's not entirely clear. Was he a champion for a nuclear-free Middle East, or was he just angry about being fired? Either way, he showed the journalist photos he'd managed to take while working at nuclear facilities. He also claimed that Israel's nuclear potential was far greater than anyone believed. According to him, the country had a stockpile of up to 200 warheads and could even create thermonuclear devices, which are way more powerful than atomic bombs. The Sunday Times was already rubbing its hands together, anticipating the sensational story that would bring in money, advertising, and global headlines. But before the journalists could even get those photos to print, Mordecai Vanunu mysteriously vanished. He was last seen at a hotel with a woman, an American tourist named Cynthia, whom he'd met by chance in London. A spark ignited between them, and soon they were planning a romantic trip across Europe. That spark was so strong that Vanunu let his guard down completely. Even though he knew he'd be hunted for the information he'd shared, he decided to trust Cynthia. Big mistake. They went to Rome, but instead of a romantic Italian holiday, Vanunu had a rather unpleasant meeting with Mossad agents. As it turned out, Cynthia was an agent too. It was all a well-planned mission. Mordecai was kidnapped and taken to Israel, where he was charged with treason. He served 18 years in prison, more than 10 of which were in solitary confinement in a tiny 2-by-3-meter cell. In 2004, Vanunu was released, but his life remained under strict control. He was forbidden from traveling or speaking to foreign journalists. He was even arrested several times for violating these rules. In 2007, Amnesty International declared him a prisoner of conscience, someone persecuted for peacefully expressing their political views. But Israeli authorities saw it differently. They argued that Vanunu could still disclose classified information, even though his data was at least 20 years out of date. But you don't argue with Mossad. If they decide someone needs watching, that's what happens. With an annual budget of around $3 billion and a staff of 7,000, Mossad is the second largest intelligence agency in the Western world, right after the CIA. This makes the person chosen to lead Mossad incredibly powerful. So, how did this special service come to be? How do its agents operate? How does Mossad carry out assassinations abroad without any pushback, and why do they always seem to get away with it? Why is this intelligence service so secretive? What are its most famous operations? And how do Mossad agents expand their influence around the world? In this video, we're diving deep into the history of Israel's intelligence service and their most high-profile operations. On May 14, 1948, just one day before the British mandate in Palestine expired, the creation of the State of Israel was announced. Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion declared that the new country needed new intelligence services. They didn't waste any time. Arab nations, who considered themselves enemies of the new state, were already planning attacks. So, by early June of that same year, politicians were already meeting to decide what the future agency would look like. A year later, they reached an agreement. Reuven Shiloh was appointed head of intelligence. The official founding day of the Israeli Intelligence Service is December 13, 1949, when the Institute for Intelligence and Special Operations, better known as Mossad, was born. It was created by merging two existing bodies and also integrated an organization that had been evacuating Jews to Palestine during World War II. Ben-Gurion wrote, "By my directive, an Institute for Coordination of Intelligence Bodies is being created. I instructed Reuven Shiloh to organize and head the institute." Ultimately, this isn't surprising. A country like Israel, living under a constant state of threat, can't survive without its own powerful intelligence agencies. To stay safe, you can't just defend, you have to act preemptively, which is exactly what Israel does. Over its existence, Mossad agents have been linked to countless secret operations. In most cases, Israel's position is simple. They neither confirm nor deny anything. But whenever problems arise in Arab countries, accusations immediately fly towards Jewish agents. And sometimes, there's a reason for that. But some accusations are so absurd that they have to be refuted. For example, in 2010, sharks attacked and even killed several tourists in Egypt. Soon after, reports emerged claiming these sharks were trained by Mossad agents and released near the Egyptian coast to sabotage tourism. Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs flatly denied it, with the minister saying someone had watched the movie Jaws too many times. Besides, shark attacks would scare tourists away from Israel too. But let's get back to Mossad's creation. Its first director, as you know, was Reuven Shaloa. He's often called the man who shaped the service into what it is today. All of Mossad's directors have had different styles. Some favored physical elimination, others focused on intelligence gathering, and some preferred undercover work. Shaloa combined all of these traits. His approach can be summed up in his own words: Arabs are the #1 enemies for the Jewish community. Professional agents must be inserted into the Arab environment. Israeli intelligence must not be limited to the boundaries of Palestine. It must serve as a Jewish Zionist guarantor of security for Jews all over the world. Information about Shaloa's activities only became public in the 1990s. In fact, due to the agency's secrecy, no one even talked about the directors until then. It makes sense. With so many enemies in the Arab world, revealing the name of the head of intelligence would be like handing the enemy a key. This tradition of secrecy changed in 1996 with the appointment of Major General Dani Yatom. Now, Mossad usually announces the names of new directors right after their appointment. Secrecy is the hallmark of Israeli intelligence. They even have an unofficial slogan: as little information as possible, as many rumors as possible. This perfectly describes Kidden, the most secret unit often associated with Mossad. What we know is that it has a small number of members, up to 100. They can reach any corner of the globe, and their calling card is a shot to the eye. It sounds like a terrifying legend meant to intimidate enemies. What is known for sure is that it's the only unit in the world created specifically to carry out physical executions on behalf of the state. Since its creation, at least 4 dozen operations have been attributed to them. The exact date Kidden was founded is unknown, but it's believed to be in the mid-1960s. Their primary mission is eliminating targets by killing them. Because of the extreme secrecy, we know very little about their operations. By some estimates, there are 75 operatives. Kidden translates to bayonet. These agents can operate in hostile territories for years, working undercover in both enemy and friendly countries. Like other agents, they also gather intelligence. The requirements to join are incredibly strict. Former operatives say the training lasts up to 2 years in the Negev desert. After selection, candidates are assigned specific roles. Kidden became known in 1990 when a former officer, Viktor Ostrovsky, revealed details about its organization and methods. He disclosed code names and confirmed that Kidden was created for killing. History is filled with cases where Kidden, together with Mossad, eliminated Israel's enemies abroad, especially in Iran. A recent example is the 2021 assassination of Iranian nuclear physicist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. But Mossad's position remains the same: they neither confirm nor deny involvement. Now for one of Mossad's very first missions, an interesting event from the early 1960s known as Where is Yassel? This is the story of a 6-year-old boy who had nearly every Mossad agent on the planet looking for him. His name was Yassel Schumacher. His parents had moved to Israel from the USSR in 1958. Facing financial hardship, they asked their parents, who already lived in Israel, to take care of the boy. But his grandfather was part of Netra Akarta, an ultra-religious group that didn't recognize Israel. 2 years later, when the parents' finances improved and they wanted Yassel back, the grandfather refused. He feared they would send him to a Soviet school and take him back to the USSR. So, he hid the boy. Even a court order to return the child didn't work. The grandfather admitted he'd hidden Yassel but wouldn't say where. Police searches came up empty. The story blew up in the media. Jokes and songs with the phrase "Where's Yassel?" became popular, and the government faced heavy criticism for its failure to find the child. That's when David Ben-Gurion tasked Mossad with finding the boy. This was in 1962. The agency's director at the time, Isser Harel, mobilized all his agents and even got Allied intelligence services involved. Israeli intelligence started monitoring all correspondence of Neturei members. For Ben-Gurion, finding the boy became a matter of principle. His day would start with the question, is it known yet where Yassel is? The government was catching all the heat, not the grandfather who took him or the police who couldn't find him. In the end, intelligence agencies managed to establish that Yassel had been taken abroad. Agents began working in many countries, but soon the search narrowed to the United States. In the spring of 1962, Mossad agents located the child in New York. The boy was living with a strictly religious family who had no idea he was wanted by the intelligence services of several countries. The operation to return Yassel to Israel was carried out quietly, without any publicity. Yassel Schumacher was brought back to Israel and reunited with his parents. The story had a happy ending, but it demonstrated the reach and determination of Israeli intelligence, even in matters that, at first glance, had nothing to do with national security. But the truly high-profile operations of Mossad began a bit later. And the most famous of them is, without a doubt, the capture of Adolf Eichmann. He was one of the key organizers of the Holocaust, responsible for deporting millions of Jews to death camps. After World War II, Eichmann managed to escape to Argentina, where he lived under a false name. For many years, he successfully hid from justice. Information about his whereabouts reached Israeli intelligence in the late 1950s. After careful verification, the decision was made: carry out a secret operation to capture him and bring him to Israel for trial. A special group of Mossad agents arrived in Argentina, disguised as ordinary tourists. For several weeks, they conducted surveillance, confirming Eichmann's identity and studying his daily routine. On May 11, 1960, Eichmann was captured near his home as he returned from work. The agents quickly immobilized him and took him to a safe house, where he was held until departure. A few days later, Eichmann was secretly flown out of the country on an Israeli aircraft, disguised as a sick crew member. And just like that, one of the most important criminals of the 20th century was in Israel, ready to face trial. The trial of Adolf Eichmann began in 1961 and captured the world's attention. For the first time in history, the crimes of the Holocaust were examined in such detail in an open court. Hundreds of witnesses testified, describing the horrors of the Nazi extermination camps. Eichmann insisted he was just following orders. But the court rejected this argument. In December 1961, he was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death. The sentence was carried out the following year. This trial became a landmark event, reminding humanity of the consequences of hatred and blind obedience. After the Eichmann trial, Mossad gained worldwide recognition. The agency showed that even years later, it could find and punish those responsible for crimes against the Jewish people. This operation significantly strengthened Israel's position on the international stage and made it clear that Mossad was ready to operate far beyond its borders, ignoring political pressure. From that moment, the tasks of Israeli intelligence expanded. In addition to collecting information, Mossad increasingly focused on active operations abroad, including sabotage, kidnappings, and targeted eliminations. Mossad began to act proactively, not just reactively. The main enemies of Israel were clearly identified, and intelligence work was built around them. Arab nationalist movements, terrorist organizations, and later, Iranian structures became priority targets. The logic was simple: if a threat could be neutralized before it reached Israeli borders, it had to be done. This approach drew criticism and condemnation from the international community. But Israeli leadership believed, and still believes, that such actions save lives. For Mossad, effectiveness has always stood above reputation. For decades, This principle defined its actions. Operations were often carried out in secret, without public explanations or legal proceedings. The logic was based on the idea that preventing an attack is more important than dealing with its consequences. Critics argued that such methods violate international law and moral norms. Supporters responded that Israel lives in unique conditions of constant threat and therefore cannot rely on standard rules. This moral dilemma has accompanied Mossad throughout its entire history. Each successful operation strengthens its reputation. Each failure or exposure provokes new waves of criticism. During the Cold War, Mossad operated in an extremely complex international environment. The world was divided into opposing blocs, and Israel had to maneuver carefully between superpowers. The agency cooperated closely with Western intelligence services, especially the CIA and MI6, while actively opposing Soviet influence in the Middle East and beyond. Mossad agents worked across Europe, Africa, Asia, and Latin America, gathering intelligence and conducting covert operations to strengthen Israel's strategic position. Israeli intelligence also played a crucial role during the Arab-Israeli wars. Accurate, timely information often determined the outcome of military operations. Before the Six-Day War, Mossad and military intelligence obtained valuable data about the plans of Arab armies, allowing Israel to strike first and gain a decisive advantage. But failures also occurred, and they were felt painfully. One of the most painful episodes was the Yom Kippur War of 1973. Israeli intelligence failed to correctly assess the intentions of Egypt and Syria. Despite numerous warning signs, the leadership believed a large-scale attack was unlikely. This miscalculation led to heavy losses in the first days of the war. Afterward, a deep analysis was conducted, conclusions were drawn, and the intelligence system was reformed. This failure showed that even the most effective intelligence service can make dangerous mistakes. After the war, greater emphasis was placed on analytical work and considering alternative assessments. The leadership sought to avoid groupthink and encouraged internal debate among analysts. This painful experience became a foundation for more cautious and balanced decision-making. By the end of the 20th century, the nature of threats facing Israel began to change. Large-scale wars became less frequent, while asymmetric conflicts and terrorism came to the forefront. Mossad adapted. The focus shifted to tracking terrorist networks, preventing attacks, and targeting their leaders. Operations became more precise and intelligence-driven. Technology played an increasingly important role, but the fundamental principle remained: act first to protect the state and its citizens. In the modern era, Mossad operates not only in the physical world but also in cyberspace. Digital surveillance, cyber operations, and technological intelligence are now key components of its work. The agency invests heavily in innovation, cooperating with Israel's high-tech sector. Today, information is often more valuable than weapons. Still, classic methods haven't disappeared. Human intelligence remains irreplaceable. Agents on the ground still play a decisive role in the most sensitive and risky operations. Over time, Mossad became not just an intelligence service, but a powerful symbol. For some, it represents fear and inevitability. For others, professionalism and effectiveness. Its reputation has been shaped by real operations, myths, and rumors. Literature and films often portray Mossad as an almost omnipotent organization. This image works to its advantage, and certainty and mystery amplify the psychological pressure on opponents. Sometimes, the belief in Mossad's capabilities is as effective as the capabilities themselves. However, despite all the legends, Mossad is not omnipotent. It consists of ordinary people operating under strict limitations, political constraints, and human weaknesses. Not every operation ends successfully. Some fail, some are exposed, and some lead to unintended consequences. These moments rarely become public, but they shape internal policies. Understanding these limits is important. It allows us to separate myth from reality and see intelligence work not as magic, but as a complex, risky, and often morally ambiguous profession. Today, Mossad remains one of the most discussed and secretive intelligence services in the world. Its actions continue to influence regional and global politics. Supporters see it as a necessary shield protecting Israel from existential threats. Critics view it as a force that operates beyond legal and ethical boundaries. Regardless of one's assessment, Mossad is an integral part of modern history. Its story is a reminder that in the shadow world of intelligence, information, power, and secrecy are often decisive. Behind every operation, there are decisions that change destinies and affect millions. Understanding this history isn't about justification or condemnation. It's an attempt to look behind the curtain and see how the modern world really works. In the end, intelligence services are a reflection of the states they serve and the threats those states face. And Mossad is no exception. The story doesn't end here. New chapters are written every year, but most of them will remain hidden for a long time. As long as there are states, conflicts, and fear, there will be those who operate in the shadows. And their stories will always stay just one step beyond public knowledge. Thanks for watching. If you found this look into the world of intelligence fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history's most secretive organizations. See you next time.